Have you all, any of you seen something like this before?
Oh,
Yeah,
Ricky got see before?
yeah, in school.
Okay, anyone else? Joel, Nicole, are you familiar or seen this before? Nicole see before? Yeah, Joel? Joel, you're muted.
wait, yeah, I think I see it before.
Okay, so when you have seen this, right, probably it's because your school or whatever wanted to have like an introduction into programming and technology for you guys, and that's why you did this. It's the same reason I'm doing this now, but I highly recommend that after today's session, right, after we do this introduction, that you move on from this, because this is extremely basic. It gets you conceptual understanding, but you cannot build any software using this. It is just for your understanding, and that's why I'm starting here today lah. Okay, so what you can do here, right? Basically, it's programming, but it's pretty much so that kids can learn, which means that you guys not kids, right? So you all should be able to learn and pick this up quite quickly. So if you see here, whatever you see on the top right, this is the what you call it, the output, the outcome. So what I've created here is just some stuff that you will need to use in order to create a certain effect. So I'm not going to explain too much. I will just show you what happens. If I press this green color flag, right, basically this thing will start working. The code will start operating. But right now, the code that operates is within this block. It's a very quick explanation. When I click the green color flag, the code inside of this forever part will keep running. Okay, so what that means, right, is that if I put this here and then I set this to 200, you will see that it becomes 200%. If I set it to 100, then it'll be like that. But this all depends on whether I click the green flag or not lah. So if let's say I put 200, I put it in, but I never press the green flag, it doesn't happen because this is an event that needs to happen before the effect occurs. Something like that. Okay, so what I'll do right now, right, is I will create a certain effect. Then I will want you guys to try to replicate or create this by yourself so that I don't have to explain. I'm just gonna do a demonstration. Then after that, you get to try this yourself. You should be able to access this through the link in the chat. You should get an instance of it, which means if you edit there, it won't affect me, but you can play around with it by yourself. Just some basic concepts first. There's these things called sprites here. These are basically each object. Each object will respond to the code in a different way. So you will have to do work on things like this. With this, right, you can copy and paste. So your Control-C, Control-V will work. You can copy and paste. You may want to copy this few stuff to the other pages later on, but we'll go through that a bit later. So what should happen, right, is I should hover over one number and this number should become bigger. And when I press on it, right, the background should change. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do this. If you see the shapes, right, they basically have some meaning on. So if this thing has like a dip like that, it means it can fit into any of these blocks. If it's a diamond shape, then it can fit only into the diamond blocks. So I'm going to do this. And so this is like programming, but I don't actually have to type a lot of stuff in order to do this programming. So you're not supposed to like memorize, but you're just supposed to see that what the process looks like. You should be able to figure this out yourself. So what will happen now, right, is when I click this, if I hover over the buttons, one of them would be bigger, and if I hover off it, it will be smaller. If I click on each of them, the background will change to something else. So that's just something that I did very quickly using this fake code lah. Okay, so I'm gonna stop the screen share. I just want you to remember what the effect you're supposed to have. You hover over each one, they should get bigger and smaller. If you click on each one, they should change the background to a different one. All the code you need, all the things you need are already on the screen for you. as part of developing your project, right, you might want to come up with an app, or you might want to come up with a website or some form of a product that actually works, and people, even if you don't put it in front of them, you can give them a link and then they can access and use it like an app. So what I have here is an example of something I did last time, where it's an online shop to order beer and drinks lah. So in this case, you have all these things that I can type and stuff. Then you can add your order, and you can order. So this is like an example of an app design or app interface which you might want to create in order to create your app lah. So when you actually do your project, how it might actually happen is like this. So this is the scenario that I'll share with you. As a team, maybe you decided that you want to create a service or product to help people gain financial planning help during the current COVID-19 situation. If you don't know, then financial planners often will meet with people or meet with them to review their financial situation, how much they are earning, how much they are spending, have they bought insurance, and have they done investments. So now that we cannot really go out to meet people, there might be an opportunity to start doing this online. So if we want to do this online, right, maybe we can create some form of an app or something that people can access the help that they need online. So this from the business perspective. If you remember the business model canvas, for example, perhaps as we do this, we already came out with the value proposition. It's easy, it feels comfortable, you can do it from home. Maybe the cost is cheap because you don't actually have to physically go and meet someone. Maybe it's more private because you can have the conversations without like maybe showing your face, or maybe it's just text. So maybe that's some of the value proposition. And the customers you have, maybe it's millennials, maybe it's people who are just entering the workforce and have a lot of uncertainty about their finances. So you can imagine how, as a team, you might develop your whole business model canvas and come up with a product that addresses this lah. From a design perspective, if you go back to design, we might go and interview like fresh grads or whatever, interview people, and you found out that people are interested to do online appointments, or maybe they want to attend some online seminars to learn about personal finance. And maybe some of you actually go and do this. So if there's a nice and easy option, that people will be keen to do this. So now, for today, we are in the tech perspective, the IT perspective. And our goal will be to try and develop some form of an online financial planning app so that people can get access to all the information. From there, right, maybe your designer or maybe as a team, you decided to come up with some app design. So let's say this is the sample that you have. Let me give you, wait, I need to be sure that you can see what I'm looking at. I'm so sorry. I was referring to this all along. So if you're trying to catch what I was saying, it's all here. This is clearer, right? Since you can see this. So this is all the things that I said beforehand. And then this is the design that maybe our designer came up with, or one of you came up with. What I'll show you now is that a lot of times what we do is we will refer to certain websites for inspiration. So we might look for websites like this, like Dribble, and then we will look for like app designs that we think we want our app to look like, or our product to look like. And then we will take inspiration from this, we will modify some parts, we will make it fit our needs, and after that we'll design and then we'll code it out. So that's what a process might look like. So what I'm showing you here is the example of what a screen might look like. Okay, so from a tech perspective, right, the question is, you have the design already, then now what? How do you actually make it work? How do you get people to interact with it? Okay, so what I'm going to do now is that I will show you like live me trying to code this design. So what I'm doing here is I'm opening up my code editor, something like this. And I can't see any of you right now because I'm sharing this screen. So if you have any questions, please raise it up, or you can type into the chat. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try and create this whole app design here. So you are not going to know how the code works, but I'll show you what that process will look like. if you do want to learn the code, there's not enough time in this session to go through, but as you develop your project, be assured that I will be able to teach you and train you in how to do this. If you are going to do a project like this. So in this case, we'll do the app design. So we'll have something like this. Just to clarify, you all can see the design as well as the code, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll do something like this. So I'll need to identify, like, as I'm coding this, right, I'm looking at this app, this design, then I'm trying to identify the structure of it, the blocks inside. So here, maybe there's a top bar. So inside of this, I'll put like top bar. All this code is, there's no need to memorize. I'm not memorizing. There's no magic to this. Once you kind of know the syntax, the basics, you kind of know it. It's like learning the alphabets. So there's another part about services. And there's another part about timing. So there's these three parts. So inside of the top bar, we look at that thing, we have some logo. Then let's just say this is the Y and A. Another one, which is the search. Then another one, which is the menu button. There we have this. Inside services, you have something like this, where it says select services or service. Then underneath of that, there is a list of services. Times 4. Okay, then inside each of this, there is text. A text. It doesn't work. So what I'm doing here is I'm just laying out the structure for the page. So let's just say the first one says family financial planning. Underneath of that, it says 1 hour. Then next one says invest. I'm not going to type too much. I'm just going to put this. This one is intro. Here we have 45 minutes. Here we have retirement, and we have 45 minutes. I'm just going to stop here. So you will see that this first part represents this whole thing. So whatever we do in like HTML, and this in most code, it will not be exactly the same, but you have to have the same kind of consideration. In this case, I consider that these are the content that needs to be there. Then after that, I'll need to figure out how to style it. So what that might look like is I'll refer to this. And the reason why I type all this app, top bar, logo, search, menu, services, all this is just so that when I try to style it, I can refer to it and style that particular part. So look at this, body. So background color, I'll make it be some form of a blue, RGB, so 0033. I'm guessing for this one, because I don't actually memorize this. There's some logic to the way that this text shows, or the color shows. So I'll just aggregate or estimate to be something like that. Then when it comes to the app, then I will say that there is a max width, and it's 320 pixels. That's height. Just say 480. Ah, shit, what just happened? That was a new tab. 480. Background color is, in this case, white. Let's just set the height as 480 rather than max. Then border radius, so that it's rounded on the edges. Then we have a border, 3 pixels solid black. just increase it to 5. Then after that, we'll do centralize it. That's okay. Then actually 320 seems a bit wide. Maybe it's just this part needs to be longer. Okay, this looks better. Then after that, I will choose to style the, let's just do the select part first. 10 pixels. Shift in a bit. Box sizing. Making all the adjustments so that it does what I want it to do lah. So I won't go into too much detail because this is not in-depth into this. Select services. So let's just say all the fonts, I don't want it to be like this little like Times New Roman type of font. I want it to be this kind of like Arial kind of font. So font family, there you go. Or sans serif. Okay, like that. Then with this, the H2, this is the select service part here, this H2. So that's how I'm labeling and targeting it. I might go and add the color for the font to be that color. Okay, then after that, I will look at the list items there. So UL, this is for this list of stuff. I'll put list style none. All these things are like over practice, then I know them very easy, know them very well. Heading 0. So all shifted to the left. Then after that, we have, okay, this is good. And let's just look at each individual one. Okay, now I want to make this background color a little not so white. I'll make it slightly gray. And then these list items, I'll make it background color white. Because you can see that in this particular example on the design, there is the background is not exactly white lah. So I'll do this, then there's a rounded corners thing, so border, radius, something like that, or too much, then there's a padding inside, put 5 pixels. A bit too much. Yeah, let's put 0. Okay, sure. Then let's just say I want one of it, right, to be the orange color. I want to have this as what is this? Orange, right? Let's just type orange, see whether it works. Okay, kind of works, but everything is orange. So this doesn't work. We don't want it to be like this. Let's just do it as click. So what happens here, right, is if the thing that we are clicking on has a class called click, then it will be orange. Otherwise, don't have. But this is very static. So if I tap or like I click on each one, right, it's not going to change lah. So because of that, what I've been touching is HTML and CSS. Now we're gonna touch on like real actual programming, which is JavaScript. In this case, we'll use JavaScript, and I'll use this add-on stuff to make my life easier. So what I'll do next is I'll select all the LI stuff. Then when I click on it, then we'll get this to add class click, something like that. Console just test whether it my code works. Okay, so you can see that it works. When I click on it, it appears. But then now I click on it, then everything also has. So what I might want to do, right, is to click. And then if you see my code here, right, it's kind of like what you did in Scratch just now. These are the blocks. It's just that this time I'm typing it. So I kind of need to know what I'm typing. So what I'll do in this case, right, if I click on everything, then they'll just turn orange. And I don't want this. So what I might do, right, is what I'll do is, in this case, when I click on one of the li, I will make sure that all of them will remove the class of click first. After that, then they'll add it back. So I might see something like this. So when I code, then I'm trying to get this function to work. And then when I'm trying to create this app and put it online, this is kind of how I might do it lah. All the other stuff, like all the icons and things, these are things that can be added on later, but I won't bother showing you right now. There are other code languages. So there are stuff like Java. Java is mostly used for Android and mobile development, but it's also used for computer applications. So if you see all these other software here, most likely they are built in Java. If you talk about iOS, iOS is using C#. If not C#, they are also using Swift. Swift is something that they created just so that you can have more control over the apps created on iOS. But it's very similar to C#. Then there are other languages like C++, which is more basic. If you think of C++ as a language, right, it is like the English alphabet. And then if you think about like Java, this is like British accent in a sense. And then you think about Swift, this is like American accent. So they all come from like similar base. Then after that, they develop to be slightly different. These are some common languages. Other ones you might have heard of is Python. Python is very popular now because it's easy for people and newbies to pick up. It's another one called Ruby. Ruby is also quite popular. So these are common languages that a lot of tech companies are hiring for. And I think that there is no need to go to that level. Knowing HTML and CSS and JavaScript, they come together, although it sounds like 3 languages. They are 3 languages. They come together and they allow you to do stuff on the web. The reason why I would encourage using this is because actually a lot of apps you use, right, is actually just loading websites. So if you ever, I don't know if you've ever had that experience, right, where let's say the app, right, let's say you have no data, let's say you're on airplane mode. Let's say you're airplane mode. Then let's say you open Facebook. Yeah, let me just turn off this thing. Let's say you're on airplane mode and you turn off you turn off your data and all that and you load. There's all these things here right now. So this is like what they call a native app lah. Native app basically means that it will load all the information and download it onto your phone, so that whenever you browse, right, you can use the app as if it's offline. There are some apps, right? I can't remember which ones are like this on my phone. But basically, these apps, they don't even load the starting screen if you don't have any data. Let me see if I can find any. Okay, so this might be an example. There's this parking.sg app. Okay, so parking.sg app, basically you will see here, right? If I switch it on, I'm currently on airplane mode, nothing loads. Because some parts of their thing, right, will not even activate or not even start without internet connection. What's actually happening is that they are loading a website in your app. So the app, right, instead of loading a full real app, they are just loading a website. And they are running it as if it's a website. So that's why with web design, right, once you develop it in web, you can also adapt it to be in a mobile app and all that instead. And when you do that, it's basically you kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You don't have to learn too much. You can get a lot of things done. So for any apps you realize, right, that they are available on both Android and iOS, there's probably a big part of it that's web-based inside of the app. And why that's good for some companies is because I just changed the code on the website, right? Everything else will change. And if I maintain like an iOS app and an Android app, when I change one thing, I need to change the other thing. That's why some people will say, hey, how come some features available on Android, then others not available on iOS and stuff like that? That's what happens when you run 2 separate things. The result is that the experience of using the app probably nicer, can probably access more data from the user's phone, but it is harder to maintain.